Yeah, g'day guys. This is just a bit of a video on how I use the 4J Performance adapter plate to put a mechanical pump off a 4JB1 onto a 4JH1 motor that I've gone and put in my Holden Jackaroo that had originally a 4JX1 motor. You can follow along and see that I made a few mistakes, but yeah, definitely I hope that someone can take something out of it and give them a bit of a idea on what to do if they've never done something like this before. Rightio, so before you pull your injector pump off, you want to get this timing mark in your pulley up with the timing mark in the block, and you want it at top dead centre on the number 1 piston to top dead centre compression stroke, which should line up here with the little O. If you're at 180 degrees or 360 degrees, that won't line up. I also did double check by popping the rocker cover off and making sure that both the exhaust and intake valves were loose, the rocker valves were loose. So set that, and now it's time to start pulling off the pump. So I've removed the covers off the injector pump. Just going to crack these injector lines on the pump here. They're 19mm, up on the injector they're 17. And then once I've got them off, I'll attack these 2 bolts here and those 2 bolts there, and hopefully there won't be a hidden one and I'll be able to start pulling it off. So it was a bit hard getting at the 2 bolts that are behind this, but I'm thinking maybe this plate here, which is bolted through one of these, 6 of them, thinking maybe it might pop off and then I can take the whole injector pump off that. I don't want to take this whole front cover off here, so I've just undone the 6 bolts and we'll see how we go there. So definitely that was the trick, undoing those 6 bolts, and she just slides out now. Because these are cut on an angle, these teeth, they need to be sort of rotated, the pump slightly as you're pulling it out. If you pull it straight it gets caught, you sort of have to rotate the pump gently as you pull it out, and it'll slide out quite easily. I made sure there was no brackets in the way so I could easily just slip it out. With the gear out now, we can see the load dash that was for that viewing window just there. And one thing I forgot was the 2 marks there, 2 little dots, and they line up for that little viewing window in here, meshing with that here, and that's there. So when I reinstall it, I'll double check that everything's lined up and line those 2 dots up using this viewing window. I think there's a corresponding single dot marked on that gear on the other side. So I've got the old injection pump on the bench at the moment, and here we have the adapter kit to go to the mechanical pump. Got this from Paul, really helpful bloke, based in Brizzy, and yeah, got the adapter plate to use this timing gear. Here I've got my pump and injectors. Injectors have been done up and the pump's been rebuilt as well, and that was from QFI in Toowoomba. As you can see here on the 4JB1 pump, this is the gear from that pump. It's got 6 bolts, whereas the VP44 of the H1 has 4 bolts. So Paul's kit comes with this plate, beautiful shiny thing, that must be whatever pattern this is, and then an adapter to use the same shaft tapered shaft, keyed shaft, as what's on the 4JB1 pump, but with the 4 bolts to use this gear. So I'll get into unpacking a little bit more. Looks like a bracket here which will be unreal for bolting up on the back of the pump, and yeah, start assembling. This one's come off the new injector pump, the VE, off the 2.8 4JB1, and I've just put these studs in to match that. There was a mark on here that the blokes that did the injector pump up, QFI, I've put, so I've just put a corresponding pen mark there. We're going to time it once it's on, but just to, yeah, line up with that. Glued these in, a bit of Loctite, the strongest stuff I've got. I don't want to ever have to touch that, I hope. So I've now bolted this up, aligned our mark, that's just a rough indicator for the time, and loosely bolted this on for when we bolt it up to the engine. Righto, so this adapter plate, or the flange that goes on here, I'd went to put it on, but put it on upside down, and as you can see here, you can't see real well, there's a bit of a clearance there, maybe a mil and a half, and with it upside down, that boss is poking out the bottom. I had it held in the vise, and struggled to get the bolts in. I assume that the bolts must have been what located, and the back of the threads here in this plate, this adapter, were slightly burred, so I texted Paul and said, mate, I don't think it's right, and yeah, Paul was really good, and he said, I'll meet you halfway and drop you off a new one. I went to get him some more photos just to show him what was going on, and put it round the wrong way, and it slipped straight in. I went, hang on. And so that's what happens when you don't get enough sleep for the last 2 weeks. You make silly mistakes like that, and it could have cost both me and Paul a lot, but to his credit, he's a great bloke, and yeah, was really helpful. So don't make that mistake, and I think it's time to bolt her up. Or just put a little bit of blue Loctite 243 on, just a dab of that, and just squeeze these up with a 1/2 inch breaker bar. Just Loctite's there, I don't want them falling out on me. So now I've done up that nut firm with a 1/2 inch breaker bar, what I'd call pretty firm. And have a look at this, that O lines up with that mark. That mark came from the old injector pump that I've transferred across where the O was prior. So QFI rebuilt this pump, have set it up to top dead centre on number 1 cylinder ready for me, so straight in the car she goes, I think. It's now time to throw the injector pump into the motor. I'll slip it in and yeah, check that our O is up the top in that sight gauge, and then our 2 dots line up with the corresponding marks on that gear through that little sight gauge. So got the injector pump bolted in just with the 1 bolt at the moment, just sort of sitting there. As you can see, we've lined up there with the O. If we look down here, those 2 dots aren't there, so I've made a bit of a blunder thinking that they were for timing, but I'm guessing that would be timing with the rest of the gears, and not for this. So yeah, this isn't really needed to line up anything there. However, I did struggle a little bit with getting the pump on, so I did move this back there, probably about to there or something, to get the teeth to line up, so that when I brought it back on top dead centre, that O lined up with that. Other than that, yeah, it was pretty easy to slip in, just a bit of wriggling and the gears sort of mesh. So I've just had Peltsy here to time my injector pump. Just put his timing gauge in the back there, back of the head, and timed that, and I think we've set it at 11 degrees before top dead center. Rightio. So I've just cracked off the clamps for the injectors. This here, cracked it off, and now just blowing out around there, 19mm spanner on these flats. Just worked it back and forward, just loosened up any crud rubbish from there, and gone and blown those out. So now to try and pry the injectors up and out of their holes. So I've used a big screwdriver, real big screwdriver, levered it up, and you can see the O-ring's starting to pop. And I've just brought up just before the O-ring's about to pop out, give one last blow down, and yeah, now should be able to get in there, roll the injector up, and out she comes. Unreal. So I've just put plastic caps, they're a 19mm hole or maybe a 20mm hole. The outer hole, I've just used some plastic caps from work, 12 JIC plastic caps. Anyway, as you can see, this hole is got a step here where the O-ring goes down to, and from where the O-ring seats up will fill up with dirt and rubbish and that, and so you want to sort of clean that pretty well. I've just run a rag in there, but you can see down in there there's a bit of rubbish. So going to look into making a little tool to push a rag down there with some brake clean, just to clean that out real nice, and then we'll get on to installing the injectors. Now this one injector here, this last one, it gave me a bit of strife, so I ended up using a 19mm spanner on the flats that the clamps hold it down with, and then the screwdriver to pry it up, and twisted the spanner to sort of work it out, and it came up not too bad. Not the easiest, but yeah, it wasn't horrible. Now I'm going to fly in and clean my injector holes, injector ports, whatever you want to call them. Just got a thin piece of tube, probably 5/16 or something, and then put a small slit in it for my phono focus. A little bit of paper towel. I'm going to soak that in brake cleaner and just whiz it down the holes to give them a clean out. So I've cleaned the first one. Hopefully I can get the phone down in here well enough to see. And at the bottom of the seat there, you can, won't focus on the bottom of the seat, but it's fairly clean. Give you a comparison. That's the dirty one prior, and there's a clean one. Just yeah, on the drill with a bit of rag and brake clean. That's actually my second rag. I did it twice, just get a bit dirty and yeah, finish up on a clean side, and yeah, it's working pretty well so far. Just dropped my first injector in, or number 4 injector. Just checked that the 2.8 4JB1 clamps were going to fit nicely. Yep, bolts are the same, bolt holes rather is the same. So I'm just going to run these through the parts washer, give them a nice clean up, and then go through, pop each injector in, clamp them down, and then run the hoses, return hoses. I've slipped the 4 injectors in. First one just pushed down beautifully, the O-ring just slipped in. The second one had a bit of trouble, the O-ring was wanting to roll up out of its groove. So I put some Panther on it, some South Sea, was trying to push it down, still wouldn't go. What I ended up doing was just giving it a slight twist as you're pushing it down, slipped in beautifully, did the other 2 like that, and real good. Now it's time for clamps and the return hoses. Doing these injector clamps, I've just gone and put a little bit of anti-seize on the bottom of the bolts and a light film of oil on the seat of the clamp just to help torque it up. I don't actually have torque specs, so I'm just tightening to feel. I'm sure I can find torque specs somewhere, or you can too.